On Thursday, activists called for a full and immediate arms embargo against Israel at a protest in Moncton outside the office of Ginette Petitpas Taylor, the Liberal MP for Moncton-Dieppe-Riverview. She's also the Minister of Veterans Affairs and Associate Minister of Defence. It was part of a national day of action organized by a coalition of groups representing organized labor and peace activists. Protests were planned at the offices of more than 30 MPs. Here in Moncton, Steve Berube, a member of the group Citizens for Peace Moncton, delivered a letter to a staff member at Ginette Petitpas Taylor's office. The staff member said the minister is currently in Ottawa for the last few days of parliamentary proceedings before the summer recess. Activists in St. John also delivered a letter to the office of Liberal MP Wayne Long. The letter calls for the feds to suspend all trade in arms and military technology with Israel. By Friday, it had been signed by dozens of MPs, including the leaders of both the Green Party and the NDP, along with 20 Liberal backbenchers, but so far no cabinet ministers. The office of Minister Petitpas Taylor did not respond to an interview request this week. The NB Media Co-op also reached out to media relations at the Department of Defence and Global Affairs Canada, but they did not provide any statement by deadline. Activists say that Canada's own laws based on the Arms Trade Treaty require that it stop permitting the export of military technology when there's a substantial risk those exports could be used to commit or facilitate serious violations of international humanitarian or human rights law, or to commit serious acts of violence against women and children. Still, Canada exported $30.6 million in military goods and technology to Israel last year, a record figure according to research by the group Project Plowshares, which promotes peace and disarmament. But the group said that even that figure doesn't include exports that go through the United States, including components for F-35s. The Israeli Defense Forces are reportedly using those fighter jets as part of the bombardment of the Gaza Strip. Here in Moncton, the company Apex Industries makes structural components for the military contractor Lockheed Martin and its F-35 program, as previously reported by the NB Media Co-op. The open letter calls on the feds to work with trade unions to help workers in those industries transition away from the arms trade. It says this would allow them to work without the fear of being complicit with Israel's war crimes and possible genocide in Gaza. Meanwhile, in Ottawa, calls for sanctions against Israel came up in the House of Commons on Thursday. Here's an exchange between the Foreign Affairs Minister and Heather McPherson, the new Democrat MP for Edmonton and Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, today the UN released their annual report on children in armed conflict. The report verifies cases of war crimes against children in Gaza, West Bank, and Israel is more than anywhere else in the world. It is an appalling and alarming confirmation of the grave violations taking place. Mr. Speaker, children are dying and the Liberals are failing them. When, what date will the government finally impose sanctions on those responsible for violence against children, including Netanyahu's war cabinet?
Hear, hear, hear. The Honourable Minister for Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I've said it many times in this House, the situation in Gaza is catastrophic. Too many children, too many women have died, and that is why the violence must stop. That is why we need a ceasefire now. That's why hostages must be released. That's why civilians must be protected. And that's why humanitarian aid needs to get into Gaza. We need to make sure that both parties support the Biden proposal. The Prime Minister and G7 Prime Ministers and leaders are in Italy as we speak, and I really hope that we can bring back peace to the Middle East. Thank you.
That was Minister of Foreign Affairs Melanie Joly responding to a question from NDP MP for Edmonton Strathcona Heather McPherson. Earlier this year, Joly said Canada would stop further authorization and transfer of arms exports to Israel following a non-binding resolution that was passed in the House of Commons. However, she said that existing permits for military exports to Israel would remain in effect. As Israel continues its deadly raids on the besieged Gaza Strip, and with the death toll in that territory now exceeding 37,200 people, it seems likely that activists here in Canada will continue their push for a total embargo. For the NB Media Co-op, I'm David Gordon-Koch.